The moment I saw his eyes, I knew the past wasn't buried. The boy struggled in the stranger's grip, his small fists clenched like he was fighting something bigger than fear. Rain hit the pavement in sharp bursts, cold and relentless, soaking through my coat as I stepped closer. "Let me go," he shouted, voice breaking, but stubborn. There was something in that voice, something that made my chest tighten without warning. I didn't think. I moved. The man froze when he saw me, just for a second, but it was enough. Enough for the boy to pull free and stumble back, breathing hard. He looked up at me, wide-eyed, and the world tilted. Same shade, same intensity, same storm I saw every time I looked in a mirror. My reflection, 5 feet tall. "Are you okay?" I asked, but my voice didn't sound like mine. The boy didn't answer. He just stared, like he was trying to solve something he didn't have words for yet. Then I heard footsteps. Fast. Desperate. Soren. Her voice cut through everything. I knew it before I saw her. I knew it before my mind caught up. "Marin." She rushed forward, pulling the boy behind her, her other arm wrapping around a little girl who clung to her side. "Lyra." I didn't know how I knew that. I just did. Marin's eyes met mine, and whatever warmth used to live there was gone, replaced by distance, by something colder. "Stay away from them," she said, her voice steady, but her fingers tightened around the children. 5 years. 5 years since I told her to disappear. 5 years since I watched her walk away and convinced myself it was the only way to keep her safe. I thought I had erased her from my world. I didn't know she carried it with her. My gaze dropped to the children again. 2 lives I had never seen. 2 pieces of a choice I made without understanding the cost. Marin. Her name felt unfamiliar in my mouth, like it belonged to another life. "You don't get to say my name," she replied quietly. No anger. That would have been easier. Just truth. Raw and clean. Behind us, engines rolled to a stop. Doors opened. I didn't turn, but I felt it. The past catching up. The reason I pushed her away now standing a few yards behind me. Still watching. Still waiting. "You need to leave," I said under my breath, eyes locked on hers. "Now." She didn't move. Didn't even look past me. "No," she said. One word. Firm. Final. The little girl peeked out from behind her, studying me with cautious curiosity. "Mom," she whispered, tugging her sleeve. "Who is he?" The question hung in the air like a held breath. Marin didn't answer. She couldn't, because the truth was standing right in front of her. And for the first time in 5 years, I understood something I should have known all along. I didn't just lose her that night. I lost everything. "You never told them about me, did you?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them, quiet but sharp enough to cut through the tension. Marin did not answer right away. Her eyes stayed on mine, steady, unshaken, like she had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her head. Soren shifted closer to her, his small hand gripping her coat, as if letting go would make everything fall apart. Lyra watched me differently. Curious, cautious, like she was trying to decide if I was a stranger or something more dangerous. The sound of engines idling behind me filled the silence, low and constant, like a warning that refused to go away. I could feel them waiting, watching, measuring every second I stayed here. "We are leaving," I said again, softer now, but with more urgency. "You do not understand what is coming." "No," Marin replied, her voice calm but firm. "I understand exactly what came before." That hit harder than anything else she could have said. Not anger, not fear, just truth. I took a step closer, lowering my voice so the children would not hear the edge in it. "This is not about us anymore." Her expression did not change. "It never stopped being about us," she said. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. 5 years collapsed into a single moment, and suddenly I was back there. The night everything broke. The night I chose control over trust. The night I told her to disappear like she was a problem I could solve. I thought I was protecting her. I thought distance would keep her safe. I did not realize I was also erasing something I never even knew existed. "Mom," Soren said quietly, pulling at her sleeve again. "Who is he?" This time, his voice carried something new. Not just confusion. Recognition. Marin closed her eyes for a brief second, like she was gathering strength from somewhere deep inside her. When she opened them again, they were different. Not cold. Not distant. Just tired. "He is someone from a long time ago," she said carefully. "Not a lie. Not the truth either." Lyra frowned slightly, studying my face with more focus now. "He looks like Soren," she whispered. The words hung in the air, fragile but impossible to ignore. I saw the moment Marin felt it too. That shift, that realization she had been holding back was starting to surface on its own. I crouched down slowly, keeping my movements calm, controlled, not wanting to scare them, not wanting to break whatever thin line still held this moment together. "Hey," I said gently, looking at Soren. "What is your name?" He hesitated, glancing up at Marin for permission. She did not nod. She did not stop him either. "Soren," he said after a moment. The name settled into my chest like it belonged there. "That is a strong name," I replied, my voice quieter than I expected. Lyra stepped slightly forward, her small hand still holding onto Marin's coat. "I am Lyra," she added, almost defensively, like she needed to be included. I gave a small nod. "That is beautiful." Behind me, a car door shut with a soft but deliberate sound. Not loud, not aggressive, just enough to remind me time was running out. I stood up again, turning my attention back to Marin. "You cannot stay here," I said. "They will not stop." Her jaw tightened. "And what makes you think you can?" she asked. I did not answer right away, because the truth was simple. I had never stopped running either. I just did it in better suits and darker rooms. "Because this time," I said finally, meeting her eyes, "I am not letting you face it alone." She let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "You already did," she said. And just like that, I knew this was not going to be a fight I could win with words. "If you stay, everything I tried to protect you from will find you again." The words echoed in my head, not from now, but from 5 years ago, when I thought distance was the only kind of mercy I could offer. Marin did not move, even as the air around us shifted with something unseen but unmistakable. The children felt it too. Soren's grip tightened around her coat, while Lyra pressed closer, her small fingers curling into fabric like it was the only safe place left. I turned slightly, just enough to catch a glimpse of the men standing near the cars. They were not rushing. They never did. Patience had always been their strength. "You have about 30 seconds before this place stops being invisible," I said quietly, my voice low enough that only Marin could hear it. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, toward the street behind me, then back to me. "Measuring, calculating, deciding. We have lived 5 years without you," she said. "We can handle 30 seconds. There was no arrogance in her tone, just exhaustion wrapped in determination. I shook my head slightly. "You survived because you were forgotten," I replied. "That ends today." Soren looked between us, his small brow furrowing like he was trying to piece together a story he had never been told. "Mom," he whispered, "why are they watching us?" The question landed heavy. Marin inhaled slowly, then knelt down, bringing herself to their level. Her hands rested gently on their shoulders, steady despite everything pressing in around us. "Because sometimes," she said softly, "people make choices that follow them longer than they expect." Lyra frowned. "Did you make a bad choice?" Marin hesitated, just long enough for the truth to slip through the silence. "I made a hard one," she said. I felt that answer more than I heard it, because I knew exactly what she meant, and I knew who forced her into it. A car engine cut off behind me. The sudden quiet felt louder than the noise before. I did not need to turn to know someone had stepped closer. "We do not have time for this," I said, sharper now. "Marin, listen to me." She stood slowly, keeping the children behind her as she faced me again. "No," she said. "You listen to me." Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. "You told me to disappear like I was nothing," she continued. "So I built a life where I could be everything they needed." Her hand brushed lightly over Soren's shoulder, then Lyra's hair. "And now you show up and expect me to trust you again?" I opened my mouth, but no words came, because there was no defense for that. Only truth. And truth had never been enough between us. "I am not asking you to trust me," I said finally. "I am asking you to give me 10 minutes to prove you should not walk away again." Her eyes searched mine, looking for something. Maybe the man she used to know. Maybe proof that he was gone. 10 minutes is a long time," she said. "Not tonight," I replied. Behind me, footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. Not threatening, not hurried, just inevitable. Soren noticed it first. His eyes shifted past me, widening slightly. "Mom," he whispered. I took a step back, positioning myself between them and whatever was coming, not as a command, but as instinct. Something deeper than logic. Something I had ignored once and would not ignore again. Stay behind me, I said, without looking away from Marin. She did not argue. That was the first thing she had given me since I returned. Not trust, but not refusal either. The line between us shifted, just slightly. Enough to matter. Enough to hurt. Enough to hope. You always stood in front of danger like it could not reach you. The voice came from behind me, smooth and familiar in a way that made my spine tighten instantly. I did not turn right away. I did not need to. I knew exactly who it was. 5 years had changed many things, but not that voice. And you always waited until the last second to remind me. I replied, keeping my tone level, controlled. Footsteps stopped a few feet away. Close enough to feel. Not close enough to trust. You look different, he said. I almost laughed at that. Not because it was funny, but because it was meaningless. Of course I looked different. 5 years of building a life from nothing tends to do that. So do you. I answered, finally turning slightly, just enough to acknowledge him without breaking the line between me and the children. He smiled faintly, like he had expected that. Like he always expected everything. I see you found something worth protecting, he added, his gaze shifting briefly past me. I stepped just enough to block that view. You do not get to look at them, I said quietly. Not a threat, not a plea, just a line. He tilted his head, studying me with the same calm curiosity he had always worn like a second skin. Still the same, he murmured. Still thinking you can draw lines in a world that erases them. Behind me, I felt Marin's presence shift. Not fear, not retreat, just awareness. She understood enough to know this was not a moment to interrupt. Say what you came to say, I told him. We both know you did not drive all this way for conversation. He let out a small breath, almost amused. Direct. I missed that. His eyes flicked toward me again, sharper now. You made a mess when you let her go, he said. The words landed harder than anything else so far. Because they were true. I made a choice, I corrected. And now you are living with the consequences of it, he replied. No judgment, just observation. That was always his way. Soren shifted again behind me, his small voice barely above a whisper. Mom, who is that? Marin did not answer right away. I could feel the weight of her silence, the way she was choosing what to say carefully, protecting more than just the truth. Someone who does not belong here, she said finally. He smiled at that, not offended, not surprised. I could say the same, he replied softly. The tension stretched thinner, tighter, like something ready to snap if pushed even slightly further. You have been looking for her, I said, cutting through it. 5 years. His gaze returned to me, steady and unreadable. Not at first, he admitted. At first, I let you believe your solution worked. That tracked. That was exactly how he operated. Let people think they were safe until it mattered most. So why now? I asked. He took a step closer. Not aggressive. Not rushed. Just enough to remind me he could. Because the past does not stay buried forever, he said. His eyes flicked again, briefly, toward the children before returning to me. And because you left something unfinished. I felt that in my chest. That quiet, dangerous realization settling into place. This was never just about Marin. Never just about me. They are not part of this, I said, more firmly now. His expression did not change. Everything connected to you becomes part of this, he replied. Behind me, Marin's breath caught slightly. Just enough for me to hear. Just enough to know she understood what that meant. The fragile distance we had built was already gone. I stepped forward, closing the space between us, lowering my voice. Then take it up with me, I said. You always preferred that anyway. He studied me for a long moment, like he was deciding something I could not see yet. Then he nodded, slow and deliberate. I will, he said. But you already know how this works. I did. And that was the problem. Because the rules had never changed. Only what I was willing to lose had. There is always a price for walking away from me. His words did not rise, but they settled into the air like something permanent. I held his gaze, not backing down. Even as I felt Marin shift behind me, closer to the children, closer to an exit that did not exist anymore. Then send me the bill, I replied quietly. He studied me for a long second, like he was trying to decide if I meant it. I did. That was the problem. 5 years ago, I would have calculated the outcome before I spoke. Tonight, I was already choosing the consequence. You always did like impossible bets, he said, almost amused. This is not a bet, I answered. It is a line. His eyes flicked past me again, slower this time, more deliberate. like he wanted me to notice it. Lines are only useful when both sides agree to them, he said. Behind me, I heard Marin shift again, the soft sound of her moving the children slightly back. Not retreating, just creating space. She had learned. That was clear now. Learned how to stand her ground without stepping into the fire. We are done here, I said, sharper now. You have seen what you came to see. He did not move. Did not blink. Not yet, he replied. The air changed again. Subtle but enough. Like a storm deciding whether it would break or pass. Soren's voice came again, quieter this time. Mom, I do not like this. Marin knelt quickly, her hands steady as she turned them toward her. Hey, she said softly, brushing Lyra's hair back. Look at me. They did. Always her. Always safe with her. We are going to take a short walk, she continued, her tone calm, controlled. Just like we practiced, okay? Practiced. The word landed heavy. This was not new for them. That realization hit harder than anything else so far. She had been preparing for this. For me. For them. For everything I thought I had protected her from. Stay close to me, she added gently. Lyra nodded, pressing her small hand into Marin's. Soren followed, his eyes still flicking toward me like he was trying to understand something he could not yet name. I straightened, my attention snapping back to the man in front of me. You have your answer, I said. Now leave. He exhaled slowly, like he was letting go of something only he understood. You always assume you have more control than you do, he said. And you always assume I will walk away, I replied. That earned a small smile. Not warm. Not friendly. Just recognition. Not this time, he said. The words were quiet, but they shifted everything. Because I knew what they meant. I knew what came next when he decided something was not finished. I stepped forward again, closing the distance just enough to make the line between us clear. Then this time is different, I said. Because I am not the same man you remember. His gaze sharpened slightly. Not surprised. Just interested. No, he said softly. You are worse. That should have felt like an insult. It did not. Because he was right. The man who stood here now had already lost something once. That kind of loss changes the rules. Changes the limits. Changes what you are willing to become. Behind me, I heard footsteps move, lighter now, faster. Marin leading the children away. Not running. Not yet. Just moving. Buying seconds. I did not look back. I could not. Not if I wanted them to make it those extra steps. If you follow them, I said quietly, we are done talking. He tilted his head slightly, considering that. And if I do not, he asked. I met his eyes without hesitation. Then we might still have a chance to end this differently. Silence stretched between us again. Not empty. Full. Heavy with choices neither of us had made yet. Finally, he took a step back. Small. Controlled. But enough. Enough to change the direction of the moment. You always were better at delaying the inevitable, he said. I let out a slow breath I did not realize I was holding. And you always mistook patience for weakness, I replied. His gaze lingered on me for one last second, then shifted toward the street where Marin and the children were disappearing into the night. This is not over, he said. Not a threat. A fact. I nodded once. I know. Because this time, I was not planning to run from it. You only get one chance to fix what you broke. The thought stayed with me long after his car disappeared into the night, long after the engines faded and the street felt quiet again. But quiet did not mean safe. It never had. I turned without hesitation, moving fast now, no longer holding back, following the direction Marin had taken with the children. Every step felt heavier than it should have, like the ground itself remembered what I had done here 5 years ago. I found them halfway down the block, near a corner where the streetlights flickered just enough to make shadows shift. Marin stood still, one hand on Soren's shoulder, the other holding Lyra close, like she was deciding whether to keep walking or turn and face me again. When she saw me, her posture changed instantly. Not fear, not relief, just readiness. You should not have followed, she said quietly. You should not have stayed, I replied. The words came out sharper than I intended, but there was no room left for careful distance. Not anymore. Soren looked between us again, his small voice uncertain. Are we in trouble? Marin knelt quickly, her voice soft and steady as she answered him. No, she said. We are just going somewhere safer. Safer. The word felt hollow in my chest. Because I knew what she did not. There was no safe anymore. Not after tonight. Not after they had been seen. You need to listen to me, I said, lowering my voice, stepping closer, but not too close. Where you go next matters. She stood slowly, placing herself between me and the children again. Always between. Always the shield. We already have a plan, she replied. We always have a plan. I nodded once. That made sense. She would have built one. Built 100, probably. That was how she survived without me. Then your plan just changed, I said. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You do not get to rewrite it, she answered. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm, to not push harder than she could accept. They know now, I said. Not just that you exist. That they exist. Her hand tightened slightly around Lyra's. That was the first crack. Small but real. We have stayed ahead before, she said. We can do it again. I shook my head. Not like this, I replied. Not when it is personal. Silence settled between us again, heavier this time. Because she understood what that meant. Because she knew I was not exaggerating. Soren stepped forward slightly, his voice quiet but clear. Why are you helping us? The question hit deeper than anything else tonight. Not accusation. Not fear. Just honest confusion. I looked at him, really looked this time, at the way he stood, the way he held himself, the way his eyes searched for truth instead of comfort. Because I should have 5 years ago, I said. Marin's breath caught slightly at that. Just enough for me to hear it. Lyra tilted her head, studying me again, her voice softer than before. Are you going to stay? That question felt heavier than anything else. Because it was not about tonight. It was about everything after. I looked at Marin, not the children, because the answer was not mine to give alone. She held my gaze for a long second, searching, weighing, remembering. Then she looked away first. We are not having that conversation, she said quietly. Not now. Not here. Not with them listening. I nodded once. She was right. There were more urgent things pressing in. There is a safe place, I said. Not far. Somewhere they will not look first. She hesitated. I saw it. That moment where instinct told her to refuse, but logic told her to consider it. Why would they not look there? She asked. Because it belongs to someone they trust, I answered. Her eyes sharpened slightly. And you are asking me to trust that? She said. I met her gaze without hesitation. No, I replied. I am asking you to trust that I will not make the same mistake twice. The words hung between us, fragile but real. For the first time since I found them, she did not push back right away. Did not shut the door completely. 10 minutes, she said finally. That is all you get. I nodded once. It was more than I deserved. More than I expected. But enough. Enough to try to fix something I should have never broken. Trust is not something you rebuild in a night. Marin's words stayed with me as we walked, quiet but firm, like a rule she had lived by for 5 years without exception. The street stretched ahead of us, dim lights reflecting off wet pavement, each step carrying us further from the place where everything had started unraveling again. I stayed a few feet behind them, close enough to react, far enough not to crowd her space. That distance mattered. It was the only thing she still controlled. Soren glanced back at me more often now, his curiosity winning over his caution one look at a time. Lyra stayed closer to Marin, her small hand wrapped tightly around her mother's fingers like she refused to let go of what she understood. How far is it? Marin asked without turning. Her voice was steady, but there was tension beneath it, like she was counting every second in her head. 3 blocks, I replied. Maybe 4 if we take the longer route. She nodded slightly. We take the longer route. Of course she would. Less predictable. Less exposed. I almost said something about it, then stopped myself. She did not need me to explain survival. She had already mastered it. We turned left at the next corner, the street narrowing slightly, buildings closer together, shadows deeper between them. The kind of place most people avoided without knowing why. You chose this path on purpose, she said quietly. Not a question. An observation. Yes, I answered. Fewer cameras. Fewer eyes. She let out a small breath. Not relief. Just acknowledgement. You still think like that? She said. I never stopped, I replied. That was the truth. The only difference now is why I did it. Soren slowed slightly, letting me catch up to his side. Are you a police officer? He asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Not because of what he asked, but because of how normal it sounded. Like this was just another walk. Another conversation. I shook my head. No, I said. Then what are you? He asked. I hesitated for half a second. Too long. Marin noticed. Of course she did. He is someone who solves problems, she said before I could answer. Her tone was neutral. Careful. Not wrong. Not complete either. Soren seemed to accept that, nodding slightly as if it made sense to him. Do you solve them for everyone? He asked. I looked at him, really looked, at the way his mind worked, the way he pushed just enough without crossing a line. No, I said quietly. Just the ones that matter. He considered that, then gave a small nod, like he understood more than he should at his age. We kept moving, the sound of our footsteps soft against the pavement, the night wrapping around us like it was listening. Lyra glanced back at me once, her eyes searching mine for something I could not name. Are you going to leave again? She asked softly. The question stopped me for half a step. Not because I did not know the answer, because I knew exactly how much it mattered. I looked at Maren instinctively, but she did not turn. She did not interrupt. This answer was mine. No, I said finally. Not this time. Lyra studied me for a moment longer, then nodded once, like she was deciding whether to believe me later. That was fair. More than fair. We are close, I said after a few more steps. Maren slowed slightly, her attention sharpening again, scanning the street ahead, the windows, the corners. Always checking. Always ready. We stopped in front of a building that did not stand out in any way. Plain brick. Dim entrance. The kind of place people passed without noticing twice. Here, she asked. There was doubt in her voice now. Not fear. Just calculation. Yes, I replied. This is the safest place they will not think to search first. She looked at the door, then back at me. Why? She asked. I stepped forward, reaching for the handle, but did not open it yet. Because it belongs to someone who thinks I still owe him, I said quietly. Her eyes sharpened at that. And do you? She asked. I met her gaze without hesitation. Not anymore, I replied. The words hung between us, heavier than they should have been. Because she knew what they meant. Because she knew nothing about this was simple. 10 minutes, she reminded me softly. I nodded once, opening the door slowly. That is all I need. But for the first time in 5 years, I was not sure if 10 minutes would be enough to change anything at all. Some doors only open because someone is still waiting on the other side. The thought crossed my mind the second we stepped inside. The building smelled faintly of old wood, and something cleaner beneath it, like someone had tried to erase its history without fully succeeding. Maren paused just past the threshold, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, every possible exit before she allowed the children to move further in. Soren stayed close to her side, quieter now, his earlier curiosity replaced with careful observation. Lyra looked around with wide eyes, taking everything in like she was memorizing the space in case she needed to leave quickly. This does not feel safe, Maren said quietly. Not a complaint, just a statement. It is safer than outside, I replied, closing the door behind us with a soft click. The sound echoed more than it should have. Too final. Too real. For how long? She asked. I did not answer right away, because I did not know. And she deserved honesty more than comfort. Long enough to think, I said finally. She nodded slightly, though I could tell it was not enough for her. It would never be enough again. Not after 5 years of surviving without promises. Stay here, I added, gesturing toward a small sitting area just off the hallway. I need to check something. Her eyes narrowed immediately. No, she said. We do not split up. I almost argued. Almost told her it would be faster. Smarter. But she was right. Splitting up had cost us everything once. I was not going to repeat that. Fine, I said quietly. Then stay close. We moved together, slow and deliberate, deeper into the building. Every step felt measured. Every sound mattered. I reached a door at the end of the hall and paused for half a second before opening it. Inside, the room was exactly how I remembered. Simple, clean, untouched, like time had stopped the moment I walked away from it. Maren stepped in cautiously, her eyes sweeping the space again before she allowed the children to enter. You have been here before, she said. I nodded once. A long time ago. That was all I gave her. Not because I wanted to hide it. Because I did not have the words to explain what this place used to mean. Soren walked a few steps inside, his voice soft but curious again. Is this your house? I shook my head. No, I said. It belongs to someone else. Lyra looked up at me, tilting her head slightly. Do they know we are here? She asked. I hesitated for a fraction of a second. They will, I said. Maren's gaze sharpened instantly. That was not part of the plan, she said. Her voice stayed low, But the edge was there now. It is now, I replied. Because if we are here, it means they are already watching everything else. She stepped closer, lowering her voice even further. You said this was safe, she said. I said it was safer, I corrected. There is a difference. Her jaw tightened, but she did not argue. Because she understood that difference. Because she had lived it longer than I had. We do not stay long, she said. No, I agreed. We do not. Silence settled between us again, heavier now, filled with everything we had not said yet. Everything we were avoiding because it was easier to focus on survival than truth. Soren broke it first. Are we hiding? He asked. Maren knelt beside him immediately, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. We are being careful, she said softly. That is all. He nodded slowly, like he accepted that answer even if he did not fully understand it. Lyra sat down on the edge of the couch, her eyes still moving between me and Maren like she was trying to connect pieces of a story no one had told her yet. I leaned against the wall for a moment, watching them, really watching them, the life that had existed without me, the life I had chosen not to know. You have questions, Maren said suddenly, her voice quieter now, less defensive. I looked at her. So do you, I replied. She held my gaze for a long second, then looked away first. 10 minutes, she reminded me again. I nodded once. But this time, the words felt different. Because 10 minutes was not enough to explain 5 years. And it was definitely not enough to fix them. Some truths do not wait until you are ready. The thoughts settled in the silence between us, heavy and unavoidable, as the room seemed to shrink with everything we were not saying. Maren leaned against the edge of the table, arms crossed, watching me like she was trying to decide whether I was worth the risk of hearing out. Soren sat quietly now, closer to Lyra, both of them sensing the shift in the air, the difference between questions and answers. You said you had 10 minutes, Maren said finally. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Not anger, not fear, expectation. I nodded once. I did. Then start talking, she replied. No hesitation, no softening, just a door slightly open. I took a breath, slower than I expected, like I needed it more than I wanted to admit. The man from earlier, I began, keeping my voice low and steady. He is not the problem. Her eyes narrowed immediately. Then why does it feel like everything changed when he showed up? She asked. Because it did. But I could not say that outright. Not yet. He is part of something bigger, I said instead. Something I thought I could contain. Maren let out a small breath, shaking her head slightly. You always think you can contain things, she said. That was never your strength. She was right. It never had been. Control looked like strength until it broke. I underestimated what would happen if I stepped away, I said. And I overestimated how far distance would carry you. Her expression did not soften, but it shifted, just slightly, enough to show she was listening, even if she did not want to. So you sent me away to fix your problem, she said. Not accusing, just stating it plainly. No, I replied quickly. I sent you away because staying would have made you part of it. She looked at the children for a second, then back at me. And now they are part of it anyway, she said quietly. That landed harder than anything else she had said, because there was no way around it. Yes, I answered. No defense, no excuse, just truth. Silence filled the room again, heavier now, pressing in from all sides. Lyra shifted slightly, her small voice breaking through it. What are we part of? She asked softly. Maren's head turned instantly, her expression changing the moment she looked at her daughter. Softer, warmer, protective. Something complicated, she said gently. But it is not something you have to worry about tonight. Lyra nodded, accepting it the way children do when they trust the person telling them. Soren was still watching me. Not scared, not confused, just waiting. You said you fix problems, he said quietly. Can you fix this one? The question stopped everything. Because it was simple. Because it was honest. Because it was exactly what I did not know how to answer. I looked at him, then at Maren, then back at him again. I can try, I said finally. It was not enough, but it was all I had. Maren exhaled slowly, pushing herself off the table. Trying is what got us here, she said. I need more than that. I stepped forward slightly, closing the distance just enough to make sure she heard me clearly. Then give me something to work with, I said. Tell me what you need. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was there. That moment where she considered it. I need to know this does not happen again, she said quietly. I need to know you are not going to disappear the second it gets complicated. I felt that in my chest. Deep. Sharp. Real. I am not leaving, I said. She held my gaze, searching for something deeper than words. Something she could believe. You said that before, she replied. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. Before, I told you to leave. That difference mattered. More than anything else. The room went still again, but this time it felt different. Not like something closing. Like something waiting. Maren looked at the children, then back at me. You have 5 minutes left, she said softly. I nodded once. But this time, the clock felt louder. Because now, it was not just about surviving the night. It was about whether we could survive what came after. 5 minutes is not enough to undo 5 years. The truth settled heavy in my chest as the silence stretched between us again. Thinner now, sharper, like every second was cutting closer to something we could not avoid anymore. Maren did not move, but I could see the shift in her eyes. Less guarded, not softer, just more aware of what was at stake. Then do not try to undo it, she said quietly. Tell me what happens next. That was the difference. 5 years ago, she asked why. Tonight, she asked what. Survival had changed her, made her practical in ways I never wanted her to be. I nodded once, adjusting my focus, pushing everything personal aside for something we could actually act on. They will not come here first, I said. But they will come eventually. Maren's jaw tightened slightly. How long, she asked. I thought about it. Not guessing. Calculating. An hour, I said. Maybe less if they decide to stop waiting. Soren looked up at that, his small voice quiet but steady. Are we going to run again? Maren's hand rested gently on his shoulder, grounding him before she answered. We are going to move, she said. That is different. He nodded slowly, like he was learning a rule he would need to remember. Lyra watched both of us now, her eyes sharper than before, like she understood more than we were saying out loud. Where do we go? She asked softly. I looked at Maren. Not because I did not have an answer, because it was not mine alone anymore. She held my gaze for a second, then nodded slightly. Permission. Limited. Careful. But real. There is another place, I said. Further out. Harder to find. Harder to follow. Maren crossed her arms again, thinking. Always thinking. And why would they not expect that? She asked. Because it is not somewhere I would normally take anyone, I replied. She studied me for a long moment. That is not reassuring, she said. It is not supposed to be, I answered. It is supposed to work. Silence again. But this time, it felt like a decision forming instead of resistance. What happens if we do nothing? She asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard for half a second. Not because it was unexpected, because it was honest. Then they come to you, I said. No hesitation. No softening. She nodded once, like she had already known the answer. And if we go with you? She asked. I held her gaze. Then they come to me instead. That was the trade. The only one that mattered. She looked at the children, her expression shifting again, softer, protective, calculating everything through them first. Always them first. You are asking me to trust you with their safety, she said quietly. No, I replied. I am asking you to let me take responsibility for it. That landed differently. I could see it in the way her shoulders shifted slightly, in the way her eyes did not immediately push back. That is not the same thing, she said. I know, I answered. Soren stepped closer to her, his voice smaller now. Mom, are we leaving? She looked down at him, her hand brushing his hair back gently, grounding herself in something real before answering. Yes, she said softly. We are leaving. Lyra stood up slowly, her eyes still on me. You said you are not leaving, she reminded me. I nodded once. I am not, I said. Then we go together, she replied, like it was the simplest solution in the world. Maren let out a quiet breath at that, something between frustration and understanding. You make it sound easy, she said to her daughter. Lyra shrugged slightly. It is easier than being scared, she said. That hit harder than anything else tonight. Because she was right. Fear had already taken enough from them. Maren looked back at me, her decision clear now, even if she did not say it yet. We do this your way, she said. But only until we are out of immediate danger. I nodded once. It was more than fair. It was more than I deserved. We leave in 2 minutes, I said. Take what you need. Nothing more. She moved immediately, efficient, focused, like she had done this before. Because she had. Too many times. I watched her for a second, then turned toward the door, listening, calculating, preparing. Because this time, leaving was not the hardest part. This time, staying would be. Leaving is easy until you realize what you are leaving behind. The thought stayed with me as I stood by the door, listening to the quiet movements behind me, the soft rustle of Marin gathering what little they carried, the faint whispers of the children trying to stay calm. 2 minutes passed faster than they should have. They always did when the stakes were real. "We are ready," Marin said. I turned, taking in the sight without meaning to linger, the small bag over her shoulder, Soren standing close to her side, Lyra holding her hand like she always did. Everything they needed reduced to something that could be carried. That was survival. "Good," I said quietly. "Stay close. Do not stop unless I tell you." She nodded once, no argument this time. That alone told me how serious she understood this had become. I opened the door slowly, listening first before stepping out. The hallway was still. Too still. But not empty. Nothing was ever empty anymore. We moved quickly, controlled, our footsteps soft against the floor as we made our way back toward the entrance. Every second stretched, every shadow felt like it was watching. Soren reached for Marin's coat again, his small voice barely above a whisper. "Are they coming?" Marin did not answer right away. She glanced at me instead. I shook my head slightly. "Not yet," I said. "But they will." That was enough. It had to be. We reached the front door, and I paused again, listening to the outside this time. Distant traffic. Wind brushing against the street. Nothing immediate. That did not mean safe. It just meant time. "We go now," I said. I pushed the door open and stepped out first, scanning the street before signaling them to follow. The night air felt colder than before, sharper, like it carried something heavier beneath it. Marin stepped out next, pulling the children close as we moved quickly toward the alley across the street. "This way," I said, guiding them into the narrower path where shadows covered most of the ground. "How far?" she asked quietly. 10 minutes, I replied. "If we keep moving." Lyra tightened her grip on Marin's hand. "I can walk fast," she said softly. Marin gave her a small nod, brushing her hair back gently. "I know you can." Soren looked up at me again, his voice steady despite everything. "You said you fix problems," he said. "Is this the part where you fix it?" I met his gaze for a second. "This is the part where we get ahead of it," I answered. He seemed to accept that, nodding once as we kept moving. We turned another corner, the streets growing quieter, more empty, the city fading into something less familiar, less predictable. "You have done this before," Marin said, not looking at me. "Yes," I replied. "Too many times." She exhaled softly. "And it always works?" I did not answer right away, because the truth was not something she needed to hear in this moment. "It works enough," I said finally. She nodded, but I could tell she understood what I did not say. We moved faster now, the distance between us and the last place stretching further with every step, but the feeling of being followed never fully disappeared. It never did once it started. "Almost there," I said after a few more turns. Marin's pace did not slow, but her focus sharpened even more, scanning everything, checking every angle. She had learned well, better than I ever wanted her to. We stopped in front of a car parked along the curb, nothing special about it, nothing that stood out. Just another vehicle in a city full of them. "Get in," I said, unlocking it quickly. Marin hesitated for half a second, not because she doubted the car, because she knew what getting in meant. Moving forward. Committing. "We do not have time," I added quietly. That pushed it. She opened the back door, guiding the children inside before sliding in after them. I took the driver's seat, starting the engine without another word. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence felt different now. Not tense, not calm, just waiting. I pulled away from the curb, merging into the quiet street, leaving behind the place that had already become too dangerous to stay. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked softly from the back seat. I looked at the road ahead, steady, focused. "Somewhere they will not expect," I said. Marin's voice came next, quieter, but sharper than before. "And if they do?" she asked. I did not look back. "Then this time," I said, gripping the wheel just a little tighter, "we do not run again." You cannot outrun something that already knows where you are going. The thought stayed in my head as the car moved through the quiet streets, each turn calculated, each route chosen with intention rather than instinct. The city lights thinned out the further we drove, replaced by darker stretches of road and fewer signs of life. Marin sat in the back, silent, her hand resting lightly on Lyra's shoulder while Soren leaned slightly forward, watching the road like he was trying to memorize it. How much farther? Marin asked after a few minutes. Her voice was calm, but there was something beneath it now. Not doubt, not fear, just readiness. 7 minutes, I replied. Maybe less. She nodded once, not asking anything else. That was the shift. She was no longer questioning the path. She was preparing for what waited at the end of it. Are we still being followed? Soren asked quietly. I checked the mirror out of habit, though I already knew the answer. No, I said. Not right now. That did not mean safe. It just meant we had a window. Lyra looked out the window, her reflection faint against the glass. It feels like we are hiding, she said softly. Marin brushed her hand gently along her arm. We are moving, she corrected. That is different. The same words as before. The same reassurance. But now they carried more weight. Because this time, even Marin was not fully sure of the difference. We turned onto a narrow road lined with older houses, spaced further apart, each one dimly lit, quiet, almost forgotten. Here, I said, slowing the car. I pulled into a long driveway, the tires crunching softly against gravel as we approached a house set back from the road. No lights in the windows. No movement. Just stillness. Marin's eyes sharpened immediately. This is it, she asked. Yes, I replied. This is the place they will not expect. I turned off the engine, letting the silence settle around us before stepping out. The air here felt different. Cooler. Heavier. Like it held secrets it had not shared yet. Marin opened the back door slowly, guiding the children out, her movements controlled, deliberate. Stay close, she whispered to them. They nodded, instinctively staying near her as we approached the house. Whose place is this? She asked quietly. I paused at the front door, my hand resting on the handle for a second longer than necessary. Someone who used to trust me, I said. And now, she asked. I did not look at her when I answered. Now he is waiting to see if he still can. That was the truth. The door opened with a soft push, no resistance, like it had been expecting us. Inside, the house was dim, but not abandoned. Clean. Maintained. Watching. Marin stepped in cautiously, her eyes moving across every detail, every corner, every shadow. I do not like this, she said. You do not have to, I replied. You just have to stay for now. Soren stepped closer to her, his voice quieter than before. Is someone here? He asked. I closed the door behind us slowly. Yes, I said. He always is. The words had barely settled when a light turned on in the far corner of the room. Not bright, just enough to reveal a figure sitting calmly in a chair, like he had been there the entire time. Waiting. Marin froze for half a second, her hand instinctively pulling the children closer. You brought them here, the man said, his voice steady, measured, carrying the kind of calm that came from knowing more than he needed to say. I stepped forward slightly, placing myself between him and them without thinking. I did, I replied. He studied me for a long moment, his gaze moving past me briefly before returning. That means you are not running anymore, he said. It was not a question. I met his eyes without hesitation. No, I said. I am not. The room felt smaller after that. Tighter. Like something had just shifted into place. Good, he said quietly. Because this time, running would not save any of you. Silence followed, heavy and complete. And for the first time since this started, I realized something I should have understood earlier. We had not come here to hide. We had come here to face what was waiting. Some endings are just the beginning of a truth you cannot escape. The man did not move from his chair, but his presence filled the room like he owned every second inside it. I stayed where I was, steady, placing myself just enough between him and them without making it obvious. Marin did not step back. That told me everything. She was afraid, but she was not running. Not anymore. You brought them into this house, he continued, his voice calm, almost thoughtful, which means you finally understand what matters. I met his gaze without hesitation. I understood it the moment I lost it. I said. His eyes shifted slightly, like that answer had weight he was measuring. Loss has a way of teaching faster than loyalty, he replied. Behind me, I could feel Marin's attention move between us, trying to read a conversation she had never been part of. Who is he? She asked quietly. I did not look back. Someone I should have walked away from sooner, I said. The man smiled faintly at that. Not offended, not surprised. And yet here you are, he said. bringing your unfinished story right back to my door. Soren shifted behind Marin, his voice small but steady. Mom, are we safe? Marin's hand rested on his shoulder immediately. We are together, she said softly. That is what matters. I heard it. The way she chose her words. Not a promise. Not a lie. Just something real enough to hold on to. You built something without him, the man said, his gaze briefly moving toward Marin and the children. That is rare. Marin did not respond right away. When she did, her voice was steady. I built what I had to, she said. That is all. He nodded slightly, like he respected that answer more than he expected to. And now you are here, he said. Which means what you built is no longer enough. Silence followed. Heavy. Honest. Because that was the truth none of us could avoid. I stepped forward slightly, enough to take control of the moment again. This is not about her, I said. This is about me. His eyes returned to mine, sharper now. Everything connected to you becomes about you, he replied. That has always been your weakness. I did not argue, because he was not wrong. I had turned everything into something I could control, until I could not. Then it ends with me, I said. That is why we are here. Marin's breath shifted behind me. Not surprise. Not fear. Something else. Realization. You do not get to decide that alone, she said quietly. I closed my eyes for half a second. Just enough to feel the weight of that. Just enough to know she was right. Again. No, I said. But I can choose where it starts. The man leaned back slightly, studying me with a different kind of focus now. Not measuring risk. Measuring intent. You think standing here changes anything, he said. I know it does, I replied. Because I am not walking away this time. That was the difference. The only difference that mattered. Behind me, Lyra's voice came softly, almost like she was speaking to herself. He stayed. The words were small, but they echoed louder than anything else in the room. Marin did not speak, but I felt it. That shift, that fragile line between who I was and who I might become finally starting to move. The man's gaze flicked toward the children again, then back to me. You are giving them something dangerous, he said. Hope, I replied. He let out a quiet breath, something close to a laugh, but without humor. Hope is the most dangerous thing you can offer in a world like this, he said. I nodded once. I know, I said. That is why I did not before. Silence stretched again, but it felt different now. Not like something closing, like something waiting. The man stood slowly, the movement calm, controlled, final in a way that changed the air around us. Then we will see if you can carry it this time, he said. I did not step back, did not move. I will, I answered. Not because I was certain, because I had already decided. Behind me, I felt Marin step closer. Not hiding, not retreating, standing. That was all I needed to know. Some endings do not give you peace. They give you a choice. And this time, I was not choosing wrong.